Thanks for tuning in to My Valley, His Victory, hosted by me, Mackenzie Smith, where I interview Christians who love the outdoors and have walked through valleys in their lives. In a world of highlight reels and surface-level relationships, we all have faced hardships. I believe our experiences can be encouraging to others if we have the courage to be vulnerable. 2 Corinthians 1 says, "The Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." My goal is to inspire you to come to the Creator through His creation and connect you with Christians who have been through similar experiences. I pray that this podcast encourages you if you are in a valley and pushes you to share how God has turned your past valley into His victory. Just in case you didn't catch my special announcement last week, I am hosting several women's retreats along with Audrey from the Trail North. Our goal with these retreats is to bring together a group of women who want to worship the Creator in His creation. Over this long weekend, you'll meet like-minded women who want to grow in community, worship in the outdoors, and challenge themselves personally. I can't wait to hang out with you, so shoot me an email at myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com for more information. Spots are filling up, so make sure and reserve yours today. On today's episode of My Valley, His Victory, we have Moody Demetry. He is the founder of a nonprofit organization that addresses social needs and nurtures resilience in Egyptian children. Traveling is integral to his ministry. He embarks on annual mission trips to reach out to Muslim people, showing Jesus' love to them, and experiences diverse cultures. Despite being an introvert, he has visited 46 countries, cherishing each experience as an opportunity for growth. Beyond his ministry, he enjoys gardening, cooking, home projects, and discussing matters of faith. These hobbies enrich his life and foster personal growth and meaningful interactions. He seeks to reflect God in everything that he does. Thanks so much for being with us today, Moody.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kenzie. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I know I gave the listeners your bio already, but if you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are.
Yeah, sure. So a little bit of a background about me. I am Egyptian American, so my roots is from the Middle East. I came to the States a while back for college and been living in the States, the Northeast here for some time. I'm a founder of a nonprofit, but I also have a full-time job that I'm leading a renewable energy company, and I'm a head of engineering there. Probably other busy, crazy things that I'm involved in.
Awesome. And you live in Massachusetts, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I know you threw out the Northeast, so always love to just put a state in it since there's so many of them up there.
Yeah, no worries.
So you mentioned in your bio that your nonprofit takes you all over the country, and I know you've gone to so many amazing places. What does it look like for you to get outdoors or travel? What are some of the main things that are included in those travels?
Yeah. So like you mentioned in my bio, I'm very much an introvert, and even though I'm an introvert, I'm very social, and I just love to immerse myself in outdoors and meet people, try their food, try the culture. So I really enjoy being out there. So my nonprofit takes me out to meet people. I'm not big on big events or anything like that, but when I find opportunities to travel and at the same time find a few days for myself to explore or go on a beautiful hike, this is like a great opportunity for me. So I take advantage of my travel for nonprofit and also for my normal daytime job.
So if you could pick, any outdoor activity, what's kind of like your go-to favorite thing that you just really try to incorporate in all of those travels?
Yeah, I think hiking is one of the spots or the ones of the sports or outdoor things that I really, really enjoy. It's something you can do it with a group of people, something you can do it on your own. Even when I travel to a foreign country where I just don't know anybody, it's a place where you can find comfort and peace and silence. And I really enjoy that. And you always meet people on the trail. They always social. They always say hi. And sometimes I actually meet friendship across the world just because I met somebody on the trail. So it's really a good experience. It's a comfort for me.
Yeah, I love how friendly people are on trail and
exactly
meeting people from all over the country or the world. And sometimes those relationships, continue on. And I love when that happens, but always love getting to hear a good trail story nonetheless.
I can tell you a story, a short one. And I wasn't hiking at that moment, but I was in Iceland, and I never picked the hitchhikers in my entire life. But in Iceland, I did. I actually crossed two people and they were trying to hitchhike, a guy and a girl. And for some reason, a sound inside of me said, just go pick them up. So I turned around and go pick them up. And we ended up spending the whole day together, around the Golden Ring, waterfalls around Iceland. And then a couple of years later, I was in Norway on a hiking trip. And that guy from, the couple lives in Norway. And we end up, hooking up again, meeting up again, and we spent some time together. So it's funny that he saw my post on Facebook that I'm in Norway and we just connected again. It's beautiful.
That is absolutely amazing. I love when those situations work out and when we actually meet people from places that we ended up going to, and now we have someone that we can say, hey, like, what do you recommend? Or, hey, let's meet up for dinner.
Exactly.
Love those opportunities. So do you have a favorite hike that you've been on, one that really sticks out?
Yeah, I think I have a few. I mean, I just recently came back from Chile when I did really awesome, beautiful hikes. And a couple of weeks before I go to Chile, I was in Arizona, sorry. Or Nevada. I got confused because I was in multiple states at the same time. That was a working trip. And then, but actually one of my favorites in Norway, the one I mentioned, it's the Pulpit Rock. It's a long hiking trip. It's one of the most places I've been to. It's like a full day trip, 3 mountains up and down yet you have to do. I did it by myself. Funny part is that I met a couple going up, and the fog came out, covered the mountains. We didn't figure out our way back until later on. The daylight there stays until like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, actually. A very long daylight. So we were able to navigate our way coming back down the mountains, but it's an experience I'll never forget, and I really enjoyed.
Wow. Good thing it stayed light later, because you could have found yourself in a situation that would not have been fun.
Yeah.
So 46 countries, that's a lot of traveling. Have most of those been in your adulthood, or have they been just over the course of your whole life?
Actually, all of them in the last 10 years. So I've been trying to hit 4 to 5 countries a year for a length of between 2 to 4 weeks. It depends on where I am. So,
wow, that's incredible. And being able to visit so many different countries and cultures, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, it's really hard to choose when you think of all the different things that these countries open your eyes to. One of the good experiences I had was in Italy, really. I did a nice road trip. I did a little hiking, a little sailing. It was like a good mix of everything. And I feel like that will always be a good place to go back and experience it again. So I think Italy offers everything from culture to history to good food to art to nature. It's just a place I would love to live there one day.
Yeah, I've been to Italy and it's an amazing place, and it's just so different. I think you can go to a lot of different places in Italy and experience different things. And so with going to these 46 countries, is this something that you have done by yourself, or have you gone with other people, or kind of a mix of both?
That's a good question. Yeah, most of those trips actually are solo trips. Italy was not a solo trip, it was me and my best friend. However, we get to know each other very well on the trip, which is awesome. But yeah, most of my traveling actually solo. So my trips to South America late last month, where I went to Argentina, Chile, and Brazil, they were all solo trips. So I actually enjoyed that too. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah. How do you navigate or maybe get the courage to go to these new places that you've never been before without really knowing anything about them? I mean, it's one thing to go to a different state. It's another thing to kind of go to a different culture where there may be language barriers, there may be money differences, there may be navigating public transportation. How do you handle that?
Very true. It could be overwhelming for some people. And I think it's a muscle you get to exercise as you do more of these trips on your own. But I do a lot of homework before any trip. Like I really plan almost my days. If I'm there for a couple of weeks or a few weeks, I play almost 5 days out of the 7 days. to the T in a way. So it makes me comfortable. Like I'm gonna wake up, I know exactly where I'm gonna visit on that particular day, which tour I'm gonna join, which hike I'm gonna hop on, and I also like do other homeworks around the currency, the medication, all kind of stuff. And yeah, there are some incidents where I need to go to the hospital. Actually, my ear infection started in Argentina before I come here. So the other thing is, I learned that the climax of really going on a vacation or going on a trip is actually happens before the trip, and sometimes way before the trip, during the planning phase, where you get so excited planning things. So if you take advantage of that feeling of you excited about a trip that even you go on your own and plan very well, the trip most likely to go smooth sailing. So I encourage everybody to do so.
Yeah. I did a solo trip to 5 countries in Europe a few years ago, and it was scary, but it was really empowering, learning, and being just in a place where you kind of have to figure things out. I think we live in a world where we don't really have to figure that many things out anymore. You know, we don't have to figure out where to go from point A to point B. We just put it on our GPS and we drive our cars, and we just, it takes the thought out of it. And so, for me, going as a solo female to another country and having to figure out the trains and figuring out how to, get to different places. And because, in the US where I live, public transportation is something you only use if you don't have a vehicle, and it is not your way to get around. And
Not
so,
really.
no. And so I would just say, it was really empowering. Definitely nervous going and wondering what happens if I miss the train, or what happens if certain things happen. But I think you just figure it out. And I think it was really beautiful to have to be in a situation to do that. Would you say that there's one part of the trip planning that seems more difficult than the rest to do from abroad?
Yeah, I think prepping for like communicating with foreigners who don't speak English, fluently, it's always difficult. And I found that my trip to South America, if you're outside the main cities where you'd like, explore especially, and go on an outdoor activity, it's kind of hard to communicate. So I would say my advice, and I actually learned from experience, is like having, practice a little bit of whatever language you go in to need when you go to a trip like this. Having a phone that actually have some sort of an application that help you translate, translating signs on like stores or on the streets or wherever you're going, using your phone has become easier now. So that's something you can actually put to use. But yeah, you got to have some sort of, a plan, what you're going to do when you get there.
A way to communicate.
Yeah.
With all of these trips and all of these hikes that you've done, I would love to hear about how these trips and these travels and these hikes have played a role in your relationship with Christ.
Yeah, I think that's what we're here for. One of the things that definitely nature does to you is makes you really connect with God. And I don't want to say that I feel God more out in nature. I would say I would connect more with God in nature. And for many reasons, but I think my primary reason would be everything else is quiet. So there is a lot more opportunity for listening. There is a lot more silence. So I guess my senses are more open. And again, it helps, at least me particularly, because I travel and hike most of the time alone, is that I stay in my head and talk to myself, talk to God, stop anywhere I want. I don't have to wait on people. So it gives me that, I guess, opportunity to just be still and listen and talk and find ways to appreciate God and thank Him and praise Him and work out whatever feelings and emotions I may have with Him, because I'm on my own with Him. And the nature provide you that silence and stillness that you can find in our daily routine and busyness.
Yeah, I connect with that on a lot of levels, and feel just that I'm way more aware and I'm way more intentional with God whenever you take out all the hustle and bustle and distractions and things.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific story or instance that you just really feel like comes to mind when you think about God in the outdoors?
I don't recall a particular moment, but I particularly, like that story I was telling you about, like getting lost in the top of a mountain where you nature and destiny. What is your fate? So you find yourself calling on God always in those situations, and you definitely see His hand moving in and guiding you. I never thought my phone would have a signal like on a 10,000 feet high mountain, and actually grabbed it, looking at it, and I found the trail on my GPS there, so it was helpful. So yeah, definitely there is ways where and moments and you will see God speaking to you. But typically in tough moments on the trails, like climbing a mountain and recognizing, I could have, gone because it's very dangerous. And to be honest, I'm confident there is other moments where his hand was there and I don't even notice it. Just knowing his way of like protecting me, like being there, available, and just his hand has always been on my life in one way or another, despite me noticing him. And I think that's why nature give you opportunity to see a glimpse of his presence in your life, but not always be clear.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to just have that faith and trust that he's there.
Yeah, I think that's so important to note that he's working whether we notice it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Just because we don't know every single time he's protected us doesn't mean that his hand of protection hasn't been in our life.
Exactly.
So for somebody who may not have the opportunity to travel to all these crazy countries and do all of these amazing things that you have, but maybe live kind of like you do, I think, in your urban everyday life, what are some ways that people can really slow down and connect with God through the outdoors, even if they live in a major city or an urban environment?
Yeah, very good question. Because most of the year we all live in our routine. And I think nature provides you with the silence to be aware, create, that void of noise around you. So I would say for everyday life, you have to be intentional. As I, will share part of my valley, like I was very intentional about my growth journey, and I was making time to spend alone thinking about my day. And I think for almost a year, I spent booked time on my own calendar to spend, 30 minutes or so, just be intentional about my thoughts, my day, my emotions, my feelings, how what I went through, and I was just discussing it with myself, praying about it. So I think being intentional about spending time on your own in silence, disconnect, basically. It's a discipline. It's very hard nowadays. And I think talking to yourself and talking to God, I think that's very helpful during that few moments you want to take on your own. And it's also journaling. I think that's really important. At least for me, works wonder for me. You see the way you were writing 10 years ago, for example, the way you're expressing yourself. And then you have a good record of where you have been and where you are now. But again, it will all start by being disciplined about being intentional of like having that time of, being alone.
For journaling, do you follow a specific prompt each day? Do you just write whatever's on your mind, or kind of how do you go about that process?
Yeah, good question. I do it differently. So if I journal about my own feelings, it's really random, whatever, how I feel. If it's about something devotional I read, say I'm doing my daily devotion or reading scripture, it's typically picking a word that I want to just spend the day or the next few days focusing on that. So I usually write that word and then write how I feel about it, find other scripture, and just make it a one pager where if I'm opening a devotional book and I would read, say, something about stillness, how someone would write about that. So I just being inspired by the scripture I read and just add my own language to it, maybe a little prayer at the end. So one day maybe I'll go back and read it, and maybe one day I'll share that with somebody else. My biggest dream is to write a devotional book at some point.
Ooh, so fun.
Yeah.
I love a good devotional book. So you'll have to let me know if that ever makes its way to this side of the world.
Hopefully.
So I know you talked about it a little bit already, but we're going to switch gears into the title of this podcast, My Valley, His Victory. So would really love for you to just share with the listeners a valley or a season of wilderness that you went through and kind of what God taught you in that, or maybe what God prepared you for and how he used that valley in your life.
Yeah, my valley is, a span over many years. I started, I guess, at the age of 17 at the loss of my father. So I'm the youngest of three brothers who have sisters. My dad was a role model to me, such an amazing man, a great figure, a servant of God. So I grew up like just bonding with him, and he was really a really role model for me. And all of a sudden at age 17, just boom, gone. So my relationship with God started at age 12. I was born and raised in that Christian home, but I made a decision to follow Jesus at age 12. But 5 years later, my dad passed away, and that like shook my world to the core. I didn't know what to do. Mostly, the typical reaction for a teenager is just being rebellious and angry, upset at God, upset at everything, blaming everybody but themselves. So, it took me away from my relationship with God for many years. And soon after that, losing the first girlfriend was in the same year that I did it. And then I was trying to run away because I didn't know how to deal with that. So I kind of took God and put him on the shelf kind of thing. I was like, okay, I wasn't very happy with how you manage this part of my life because I expect a lot of different things from you. And I don't know if it was high expectations, but we get taught since our bringing our young childhood, like how God loving is, how great He is. I don't think we think too much about life in general and the ups and downs, the valleys, like you mentioned. But we always focus on like, what do I benefit from God? And I didn't expect a big shaken situation like that for me. So I walked away. I spent many years, and then I was running away, and I moved to the United States. So I moved again, solo traveler, moved on, packed my bag, and here we go to a whole different world, not knowing anybody. Seriously, I had zero contact in the States. I traveled with $538. That's all I had, and a suit bag. So started life on my own, immersing myself, I guess, in the world because I just wanted to run away from this father figure who we call God, who really didn't protect my earthly God. So, and didn't know how to deal with it but to just run away and enjoy life. So try to forget about the pain that I'm having within me. And can I use God through that journey to like, if I need help? You know what I mean? Like he's my last, friend to call, like, the last lifeline to call. Like, hey, by the way, I'm here. You remember me? I need help. I need some assistance because I tried it. But just in case you have a better idea, can I ask you to help me? And that happens often. It was silly me when I think about it now. But I think I was still growing and I was still being a teenager, I think. And my faith was not mature enough to recognize that, God is always there despite the ups and downs. Yeah, and then the journey continued that all of a sudden I hit the age of 30 and all of a sudden I want to have a family because I always, when I was young, funny thing, I even told my mom that when I was a child, by the way, by this age, I'm going to be finishing college. By this age, I'm going to get married. By this age, I'm going to have kids and life going to be perfect. And I would repeat that often to her, kind of like, making my own plan. And it's funny, you remind me of that verse that speaks of like, a man have a plan, but God sets his footsteps. So I had a plan, but God totally redirected my footsteps, totally. And I think that was his way of humbling me because I think I was arrogant man since I was growing up. Maybe because I was a spoiled little child, the youngest of the three boys. I don't know what it is. We weren't even rich or wealthy in any way, but this has always been in my head. So yeah, age 30 hits, get married to the first one who said yes to me kind of thing. And to be honest, I took all this package with me as well. So I wasn't the best husband. I wasn't, a good role model. I was still upset with the death of my father. And yeah, 3 years later, we started having issues. She wanted to leave. I wanted to take a break. So I went on a mission trip with my church. And still my relationship with God wasn't really solid, but that's another way to run away, to go on a mission trip. It's almost like Jonah, right? You're getting in the boat and running away. Like, it really reminds me of that. And there I kind of met God again. But funny thing is, on my mission trip, I got the call that my wife at the time is leaving me. And when you come back from the trip, you won't find her home. So I was like, I didn't know how to describe it, but it was like sweet, sour spot where like another relationship, very important relationship in my life is taken apart, broken, and then or feeling rejected again, not even by God, by someone on earth. And at the same time, I'm experiencing this amazing experience with my team and my church on a mission trip. So coming back, it was an eye-opener. Yes, she was gone. My house was empty, literally from everything and her. And then I start like something need to change. Like, what is going on? So I really took took steps to be intentional about. I need to spend some time with God. I need to talk to Him. I need to figure it out. And I could hear God speaking finally to me. I recall almost a tangible, loud voice in my ears saying, when your dad passed back then, you decided to run away. Now, in this situation you're facing, what is your decision? You want to run away? And I could recall like my response was almost immediate. Like, I tried it my way, God. I don't want to do it again like this. And I just threw myself on Him. Again, the experience was so hard. I did not want even a divorce. I fought it for a couple of years to maybe prolong it and try to win her back and work on the relationship. However, it was a fruitful experience because I think I pulled the strings and I pulled God into that experience. And then, I think the person who I am now was totally a result of all this long journey on a valley, basically.
Yeah. So coming to that realization of I've tried it my way, I need to try it your way. What did those steps, look like? And what were you doing before that maybe you had to surrender?
Yeah. So I think one important thing is like bringing God from that shelf that He was on and like dust Him off and like bring Him back into my life as a main go-to person on a daily routine kind of thing. I don't want to say it's a routine, but it's like a daily relationship with Him. So I started there. And I think when you spend time with the person who really made you and created you, He opens your eyes. Really, when you're also in a very desperate and you say, God, I know I'm not the best version of who I am. I hidden so many pain moments in my life since my dad passing till now. I feel rejected by the world, but you still love me. All kind of emotions that you have to deal with and bring it to Him. He doesn't stand still and watch you. He really uses those vulnerable moments to work on you and help you overcome them. So basically the things that I did is like really spending daily time with Him. I can't make a decision without asking Him first. It's just like becomes almost like a very tight relationship with Him that I cannot like forsake ever again. And since then I've grown as a person, but also I have seen His hand a lot more manifested in my life. Like, similar, one simple thing, like I lost my job over the summer and I was freaking out. That was the first time ever happened. And as I was trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, like that fear came on to me, and I was like, oh, well, how am I gonna pay my bills? How am I gonna do all this crazy stuff? And one of my friends, who like just take the summer off and relax. I was like, that would be very nice, and I hopefully start working on November 1st. I was saying as a joke to just skip the awkward moment. And funny thing is, God listens. And guess what? I started my new job on October 30th, exactly a day before what I wanted to. And it's funny thing is, like, he does this amazing stuff when we continue to involve him in our life.
Yeah. I love what you said about, having him on a shelf and, only pulling him off the shelf when we need something from him, because I think that's the walk of so many Christians. Is it's, a phone call when you really need something, and it's not that daily relationship. And so I think that we can't treat God like that. Like, he really does have to be the center of our life. He has to be something that we have intentional relationship with every day. And it can't just be, we all have those relationships in our life where I'm sure, you only hear from them when something's going wrong. And
Yeah.
if we can think about those relationships in our life, and man, how much those, maybe, I don't want to say drain us, but, I think it's hard to feel really close to someone when all you hear from them is when things are going wrong. And so I think if we just put that into perspective into our walk with God, that would show us so much. But I love that analogy that you said of like taking him off the shelf.
Yeah. It's very hard. Again, it takes you back to like, you want to be intentional with your walk. It doesn't mean, by the way, for all the listeners, it doesn't mean that you can have another valley or weak moments or anything like that. Even when you involve God in everyday life, it's just the opportunity that he would carry you throughout that valley versus doing it on your own. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. So out of getting to that moment of, I can't do this, I really need your help. And just even now, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you took from, going through a long valley and a long decision of doing it your own way, and maybe blaming God for some things that he wasn't even really a part of?
Yeah, lots of lessons definitely for me. And I think I'm still learning them. I definitely like trusting him. It's a big one. But seriously, like, his goodness is way beyond what we think and even recognize. So having that in the back of my mind, like, it makes every difficult time sweet somehow, because the valleys where I've been in, and then when you make it again to the top of a mountain, you kind of know what's on the other side. So, it's a valley. So it's a valley. Like, I feel like, as a hiker yourself, it's going to get easier as you go. And it's worth it when you come on the other side from the valley. So with God, I learned to just trust him, and nothing going to make me change my mind about that. He's very faithful to me, and I think he's faithful for who he is. So in return, he always makes on his promises. The other thing I actually learn is like, our expectation of God is way different than we have learned as children. And we should expect that he works on us. Like, he would transform us, he would change us. I mean, those prayers, they're not easy prayers when it says, God, transform me, God, or make me like you, or make me like Jesus. Those are serious prayers. And if you're not willing to take on those prayers or those steps, don't pray them. I feel like it's really hard to go through a journey like that. But when I trust him and he's faithful, and I experienced it a few times, and I say, God, I really have a side of me that I really don't like. And, I really think I lost my job because I was getting very prideful. Again, like, he was like pulling me back because, I'm a vice president in a company where, I make good money. I lead, a big organization. And at some point I felt, I got it. I'm at the top. And I think he pulled the rug under me. And somehow he allowed me this summer to enjoy and travel and stress and worry. But at the same time, he delivered again on his promises in a small, silly prayer that I want to start on a particular day. Those kind of things that we have to expect from God, that He will use every opportunity to make us more like Him and teach us a lesson. It makes life and journey with God a lot easier, for sure.
Yeah. That's beautiful that you have that perspective of humility and being, humbled, because I think a lot of people could have used that scenario to be mad at God. And I think that, him using these past valleys that you went through and him refining you through those moments helped you realize that, this is not an attack of, God doesn't want to hurt me. God doesn't want to, he wants what's best for me. And, my job may not be what's best for me because it's making me prideful. And so it's,
Yeah.
he's not doing it to hurt you. He's doing it to be helpful. And so I think that it's beautiful that you have that perspective now, because, if this would have happened, in that early years, it might have pushed you further away from God. And I love that, kind of once you get to this place, you can start to see some of those, what look like losses, as victories, because you are becoming more like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whenever you were talking, I was thinking about, there's a book by Craig Groeschel called Dangerous Prayers. And it talks all about praying very specific, very hardcore prayers. And it's like, being like, God, are you sure? Like, are you sure you're willing to give up certain things in your life so that you can be more like God? And it talks about, not just praying like, oh, dear Lord, help me today. It's like, no, specific actions that are going to change your life. And it's a really good book if you haven't read it. But where I kind of want to send us, and where I kind of want to leave off today, is with just a word of encouragement or hope for someone who may be in a similar season that you were in, and just what advice would you offer them?
I was thinking about that question before we started recording, actually, and I remember something I posted on my social media years ago. So if you don't mind, let me read it, and if you don't like it, you can take it out. All right, so here's a conversation between me and God, and here it goes. So I said, God, hello, it's me. I'm falling apart. Can you put me back together? God responds, I would rather not to. So I ask with a strange face, why? So God answers, because you aren't a puzzle. And I looked back at him and I said, what about all the pieces of my life that falling down on the ground? And God answered, let them stay there for a while. They fall off for a reason. Take some time and decide if you need any of them back. So I said to God, I don't understand. I'm breaking down. And God says, no, you don't understand. You are breaking through. What you are feeling are just growing pain. You are shedding the things and the people in your life that holding you back. You aren't falling apart. You are falling into place. Relax. Take some deep breath. Allow those things you don't need anymore to fall off you. Quit holding on to the pieces that don't fit you anymore. Let them fall off. Let them go away. So I answer him, once I start doing that, what will be left of me? God answered, only the very best pieces of you. So I replied, but I'm so scared of the change. God answered, I keep telling you, you aren't changing, you are becoming. And I said, becoming who? God answered, becoming who I created to be, a person of light, a person of love, a person of charity and hope and courage and joy and mercy, a grace and compassion. I made you for more than a shallow pieces you have decided to hide yourself into and cling onto. Let those things fall off you. I love you. Become who I have made you. I'm going to keep telling you this until you remember it.
Wow. I'm like processing all of that, because that is so good.
It's basically my life.
I think that there's a lot to take out of that, but I think that the one thing that sticks out to me is just, I think we are so afraid to lose certain things in our lives and certain people and just certain things. And I think that a lot of times we can become more like God once we're willing to let go of those things. And so I just think that that's so powerful, what the message of that is and what that says. So thank you so much for sharing that.
No, thank you.
And I just want to thank you for sharing all that you've shared today and showing up, being vulnerable, and having the courage to share with others what God has taught you, even though it may not be pretty and even though it may have included some things that we may feel shame about. But I think that this is going to be helpful to so many others that have a similar feeling or have gone through a similar situation. And so I just thank you for showing up and allowing God to use you in your story.
Yeah. No, thank you for allowing me to be in your podcast and actually opening up and sharing those vulnerable moments. I used to be very ashamed of those, but with God's grace, not anymore. So
Yeah.
thank you for the opportunity.
It's amazing how that happens. And I do want to give you an opportunity as we close out here just to share a little bit about your nonprofit and what it is that you do.
Yeah, of course. So I run this nonprofit for the past 10 years. The nonprofit, it's called Heya Masr, which translates to She is Egypt. It was devoted and made initially in 2013 to look after girls and women, to support them through a journey of overcoming physical and emotional and psychological violence and abuse. It's been running for the last 10 years successfully. We have been grown out of our shell to support boys, men, educators, teachers. We basically creating an awareness program for the whole community. And there is a lot of stories that is successful, that speaks of like basically people growing out of their pain. And in the midst of all that, we show God's love through that nonprofit, where people experience unconditional love from people they don't know, nor expect anything in return. So I'm happy for where the first 10 years is, and if anything I can ask is just a prayer for the next 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who wants to follow along with you or your nonprofit, where can they find more information?
Yeah, I don't remember my handle, but I think it's moods underscore travels on Instagram. And the social media, the website for the nonprofit, it's Heya Masr. It's HEYAMASR.org. Feel free to subscribe and you'll get our newsletter and all the other information.
Yeah, and we'll be sure to include those in the show notes. So if you guys are interested in learning more, you can definitely check those out there. Thank you so much, Moody, for being with us today. And like I said, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing what God has done in your life so that others can take that and use it however they see fit in theirs.
Thank you, Kenzie. Appreciate it. God bless.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of My Valley, His Victory. If you or someone you know are interested in being on this podcast, please email myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com.